the fat and give you our gut reactions on all things pop culture, film, TV and theatre. We talk the legends in the creative industry and those on the rise. We game old school. We do all of this, and a whole lot more. Like, subscribe, and get involved. Join Lance Dean, Anthony Nielsen, and the Outcast Creative.
Hello, welcome to an unusual spot. Don't often do interviews on a Monday night, and we are clashing with a big one on another channel. Critical Drinker is interviewing William Hope from Aliens this evening. So I suspect a lot of people will be watching this on catch-up, but all good. So co-hosting with me tonight is my good buddy from the Nielsen ratings on Tuesday night, Northern English Bastard, who has literally just finished watching Rise of the Foot Soldier. Hello, sir. How are you?
Yes, I am fan. I almost thought I wasn't going to make it in time, but no, I did. Yeah, good film. Good film. I like it.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that with the second unit director and the man who edited most of that film in just a sec. So my guest tonight, Will Gilbey, first came to my attention when he worked on a project with his brother called Rise of the Foot Soldier. It's a well-known film. I've got about 20 of my friends are in that film, some of whom I've directed since. Mark Zamet's first acting job was in that. He was in The Journey with me that we shot out in Greece. And Mitchell Lewis, who was in Rise of the Foot Soldier, it was his first job in a while. He did his first acting job with me. He played one of the Turkish gangsters, and I'm going to show my guest a photo of Mitchell when he was somewhat younger. So my guest that I'm bringing in tonight, it's kind of symbiotic, really, because it's almost like our lives have been running in parallel. We met in a pub purely by accident. I knew exactly who he was. Here is the man himself. Thank you for coming on.
Hi, Lance. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here. Yeah, cheers.
Not at all. Well, we're all about promoting the work of other creators on this channel. And you are, I would say, it's not inaccurate to call you an independent creative, really, freelance.
Yeah, 100% freelance. Yeah. Always
Yeah.
have been. Yeah.
So, as I do with every guest that we have on, before we get into your career and your latest work and stuff like that, I've got a series of quick fire questions for you just to get a sense of your relationship with film and television. Can you tell us what was the first film you ever saw on the big screen in the cinema back in the day?
Yeah, I think it was E.T. I think I was 3 years old, and I almost had to be taken out screaming, "E.T.'s dead!" I got very, very, very upset. And my brother, who was with it, he's 4 years older than me, he still takes the piss out of me and will do that to me when he's trying to annoy me. He'll just go, "E.T.'s dead." But it did, I think that was the first one. That's certainly the first one I remember.
Well, funnily enough, I showed that film to my ex-partner who'd never seen it, and when he died, she blubbed, and then when he came back to life, she was like, "Yeah!" It's a film. That
I showed it to my son a few years ago. He was about 5 or 6. He had the exact same reaction. When you think E.T.'s dead, I mean, Spielberg's powerful, so he does elicit those emotions so effectively.
This goes to show what a timeless film it is, although I wasn't very happy about the guns being replaced with walkie-talkies, but that's...
I think I've got the 4K Blu-ray, which they've gone back and got is the original version without that.
Yeah, they got rid of the CGI version.
Without that nonsense,
stupid.
The whole reason he makes them fly is because he sees the shotguns being cocked and he knows their weapons because he's seen that on the TV, and so that's why he makes that. Anyway, we're
careful. They're going to call for backup. Fly away.
We're going down a rabbit hole. It's not called Will Gilbey Talks About E.T. So, okay. Next question. What was the last film you saw at the cinema?
Last time I saw at the cinema was what's the new The Fall Guy.
Okay, what did you think of that?
Yeah, I liked it. I didn't like it as much as I thought I would, but it was big, it's bombastic. Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling are very charming. They're very good in it. David Leitch can direct action very well. So yeah, I did kind of enjoy it. Yeah,
lots of practical effects from what I understand.
Yes, well, lots of great stuff now they can do is obviously, you can do a stunt practically, but you've got wires and safety and this and all that stuff can be removed.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Plus, it does show a little bit of the bond between stuntmen as well, and how loyal they are to each other, and how they've always got their backs. And I did
Yeah.
really like that little element.
I do.
Well,
Yeah.
in fact-
I always find on a film. Sorry, I'm killing you a quick fire round here.
That's all right.
I always find on a film that's usually, the stunt crew, the stunt team are some of the best people to hang out with. They're usually outdoorsy. They're tough as hell. They don't complain, and they're really enthusiastic and they love what they do.
Well, we've had a stunt coordinator. We've had 4 of them on here. We've had we've had Alan Graff, who's one of the biggest in America. We've had Debbie. God, I forget her surname now. She's the biggest stunt woman in America. 400 credits on IMDb.
Wow.
Career since the 70s. But we've also had Dan Stiles, who you've worked with, of course.
Yes, fantastic.
He used to be my flatmate. So,
oh, really?
Me and Dan go back we go back a long way. British actor or actress you'd most like to work with that you haven't worked with yet?
I got asked this question the other day, actually, and I was with an actor called Chris Riley, who's in Jericho Ridge, and we both agreed. Well, he's already worked with him. I'd say Gary Oldman. It's got to be. Surely.
Yeah, good choice.
Yeah, the guy can play anything. Plus, when you watch his earlier work, he's one of those really good He can be a really good grounded British actor as well as a big Hollywood star as well.
Totally. Yeah, he felt. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all right. Same question. American actors. Got one in particular you'd always like to work with that's still around?
Who would I? I'll come back to you on that. At the top of my head, I can't think.
Okay. Name a favorite film that you watch at least once a year. Could be a guilty pleasure, or it might just be a favorite of all time.
Aliens gets twice a year, I reckon. The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. I have to put that on at least once every 12 to 18 months. That's just something about that. The score, Deakins' photography. It's very cool.
That's Sam Peckinpah, isn't it?
No, that's what's his name?
Yeah, Brad Pitt and Casey Affleck, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a guy who directed Chopper. His name is Andrew. Oh God, I'm blanking on it, but it'll come.
Yeah, there's an older version of that same story, but it's got a different title, which I think is the one that Peckinpah directed.
That's great. That's the
You're not getting mixed up with Pat Garrett and Billy.
Yes, that's what it is.
Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. Sorry, that's I was getting these things mixed up. Do you have a film that you consider a guilty pleasure that maybe isn't critically highly regarded?
Oh, guilty pleasure. I can't think. I always think guilty pleasure is, it's a. I mean, it's a bit of a, it's a bit of a slaggy term. So I don't really use it. I know what you mean, but I just don't think I use it as a term. I think everything. If you're enjoying it, it's a pleasure.
Maybe what about a favorite B movie? Would that be a better way? I mean, Tremors is a B movie, but
Tremors is absolutely brilliant. Actually, Tremors is one I watch every 2 years. We
had the director on Ron.
Oh, because it's brilliantly directed and shot, and okay, I'll say Tremors is great. But that to me feels like a really, really good piece of work. Very solid.
Do you have in the last 20 years, let's say, do you have a favorite television drama series? Could be American, could be British, it could be from anywhere. Well,
I think there's probably 3. I'm not going to put Deadwood in there because they only did 3 seasons and it got kind of cut short, didn't it?
Yeah.
So it's going to have to be The Wire, The Sopranos, The Shield.
Yeah, well, The Shield.
I've yet to see The Shield properly. The Sopranos,
The Shield is immense. I think those would be my top 3, just in terms of the ones that also they sort of came out long enough ago when TV was really ramping up, becoming exciting, and the sort of possibilities suddenly seemed so much more. There was just so much more happening. It suddenly got so much more complex and violent, and the writing was much more intense. So The Shield was epic. Season 2 of The Shield is one of the best seasons ever of TV. It's up there.
It's incredible writing, and actually the lead writer, ultimately he started off as just one of the team, but I think it was by the end of season 3, Kurt Sutter was the lead writer on The Shield, and then of course off that he got Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah,
good show. All right, that's the quick questions over. So going into your career, we're not going to do this in order because I want to make sure we get adequate time on your latest project.
Okay.
Jericho Ridge, in case we run out of time. I'm right in thinking like Jericho Ridge is your first full feature that you personally wrote and directed, is that
exactly right? Yeah, it's my first one. Yeah.
So it's kind of assault on Precinct 13 with a woman who's badly injured is a good Would you say took any inspiration from John Carpenter's?
Yeah, well, I mean, so Assault on Precinct, it's one of those films I think I last saw it on VHS or DVD. Obviously, it's fantastic. Love the movie, but it's one of the things when I was developing and writing this, I never revisited it just because I didn't want to be.
No,
I realized I'm doing a police station siege thriller, mostly one location film. Obviously, probably the high watermark of that is Assault on Precinct 13, and I just didn't want to be subconsciously pulling stuff from that film. So, it is absolutely immense. What is it, 1976?
Yeah.
I want to say, so it's coming up for 50. Is that 50 years? Is my maths terrible, or am I? Yeah.
No, nearly 50 years.
Yeah, it's coming up for 50 years. So I think the world is ready for another, police station siege thriller. But yeah, so no, it's a great movie.
When you just taking this project from its inception, I guess the starting point was, okay, I'm going to do a movie. This is going to be my feature that I'm going to direct. Did you sit down and start spitballing ideas, or did this idea come to you? Was it a case of, right, I want one location so we can keep the budget tight? Were those considerations, and then you looked for an idea
Totally. So like, I had another script I was trying to get made, which is like a neo-noir, like crime thriller, really twisty turny, really fast-paced, very intense, but I guess slightly more sprawling, more characters, more locations. And obviously when you're trying to do your first film, it's, unless you get very lucky or you have it's going to be fairly low budget, and you kind of know that. And I think I went for a walk once with my wife and my kid, and he was having a massive tantrum, and so I sort of decided to walk ahead, and I just started thinking about a woman manning a dispatch radio for the night and what that could be. And that was the sort of first kernel of the idea, the sort of the genesis of it. And I sort of started developing it out from there. But yeah, trying to keep it contained, trying to keep it ambitious, but not over the top. So i.e. we can live up to it. We can fulfill our ambition rather than get a bit stuck, try and reach too far and end up looking sort of cheap and compromised, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's all set in America. The impression I got from the film was it was on the fringes of the American-Canadian border. The second.
Yes, yeah.
But you shot the film in Eastern Europe, I think.
We shot it in Kosovo. So I think we're the first international feature to shoot in Kosovo. It's a tiny country.
Yeah.
We looked all over, like we explored, just before COVID, we went to Location Scout Canada, Winnipeg in 2019, November. And, then obviously started looking at the news and thinking, what's going to happen? And then like the rest of the world, we got locked down, we got shut in, and obviously everything got put on hold. And we were exploring, where's the first place in the world that's going to open up? Where can we get into production? We need to get, we've got, and we explored loads of different ways of doing it. And eventually, after going around the houses and looking at some pretty mad places, one of which was Yorkshire, we got desperate, which might not have worked. Yorkshire for America, I don't know, maybe. But so we went, one of our producers, I had three main producers, one of them, Harvey Asker, for about the last 10, 12 years, has been going to Kosovo, taking like commercials there, music videos, short films. He produced a short film out there, I think it came out in 2016, called Shock, that got nominated for an Oscar. So he's been sort of working with everyone out there, finding the absolute best of the best. Finally, we figured out this is the best place to go do it. It makes sense for the money we had. It makes sense. We ironically got more days on our schedule than we would have got doing it at a budget level 4 times larger. And we got to build the sheriff's office rather than sort of adapt an existing structure. It was like, okay, we can plan this out, and we can make it the right size to, you know what it's like when you go to a location, you think this is going to work great. Then you get the crew in, you get the lights in, you get the grip truck in or the grip gear in, you put the dolly in, you get the actors in, and you suddenly realize that there's absolutely no room. Yeah. So we were able to build this sort of bigger than it really needed to be. And, that worked great. And we were able to smash the living hell out of it as well, obviously, which is super helpful.
You smashed the living hell out of both it and your lead actress. We'll come on to Miss Amuka-Bird in a second. On the subject of casting, because we have quite a lot of actors that watch this channel, and of course, actors are always interested in the different ways that directors work in terms of casting. And I'm guessing based on my own experience, the first thing you do is you kind of look in your black book of contacts before you even reach out to agents. Is there anyone that's right for these roles that I've worked with before that I can have a conversation with and say, hey, I've got a script coming for you. Do you want to have a read? And then the next level would be, okay, now we're going to, if none of those people fit the bill, now we're going to cast our net wider and put a casting thing out. Is that how you work? I mean,
that would make sense, but on this it was slightly different. I think Jericho Ridge is such a lead sort of centric film. I.e., the character that Nikki Amuka-Bird plays, Tabby Temple, is the only point of view character in the film. She's every scene she has to be in. She has to drive every scene. We never really see what she doesn't see. So like it was so important. We had to cast the lead first, and that's what we did. And we tried all sorts of different methods of doing that. We tried doing pre-sales and all that sort of stuff. I mean, we didn't really get where we wanted to with that. So we just figured out, this is how much money we've raised already. We can go and do this in Kosovo. Let's get the absolute best actor we can get for what we've got. And Nikki was top of that list because she's superb. And then we started looking for everyone else, and it got quite down to the wire. I think Simon Kunz, who played the sheriff, I think we cast him about maybe a week or two before we started turning over. So it got quite close. It got quite tense.
Yeah, I mean, Nikki is a phenomenal actress. I followed her career quite early on and had a meeting with her about casting her in the Journey, a role which ultimately was played by Valile Tushalabla, another great actress, because Nikki had to drop out because that sci-fi film she was shooting ran over. They got behind schedule. You know how that goes. Yeah. So unfortunately, I was robbed of my chance of working with her at that time, but hopefully there'll be another occasion. Did you sort of look at people that fitted the bill, or was there a sort of a compiled names? Did you have people come in and read for the part, or
no, we did. So we did some casting initially. Sort of, we were looking sort of the Canadian version. So and obviously we had to sort of junk all that because we needed people closer to home. So we had two really good casting directors who went out and started sort of sourcing names, sourcing ideas, and pretty much everyone I think read for it, other than Nikki. And it was just a case of the best people got the roles.
Yeah,
but it was what it was. I've never done it before, so obviously I guess everything's changed since COVID. We did all the casting on Zoom, so you weren't in a room with it. I guess that's kind of standard practice now, but it certainly wasn't when I was a bit younger. No. And it's totally different not being in the room. It's not I'd much rather be in a room with someone and actually sort of be interacting with them personally rather than over a screen. You can get a bit closer, you can get a bit deeper. But no, so everyone else. But I think honestly, it's really nice to get some seasoned sort of pros and some sort of really cool up and comers. So if I'm thinking of sort of Zach Morris and Solly McLeod, who I think are just going to go onwards and upwards and do really, really well.
I mean, both you and your brother, and I'll come on to the working relationship you've had with him, obviously more than once. I have noticed that about you guys. You've had a knack of spotting talent. I mean, in Rise of the Foot Soldier alone, the likes of Jason Mazza, for example, who's a phenomenal actor.
Very good, yeah.
I am always moaning at him, saying, mate, do some other types of characters, leave the Cockneys for a bit, and because I know he's capable of doing anything.
Yeah, he's very good. Yeah, he was very young when I think we did them, 18, 19, something like that.
Yeah, you had Roland Manukin in there, whose career I'd followed since he did a BBC drama called Our House with Ashley Walters about a load of kids living in a care home.
Right.
Kirsten Waring, of course.
Who was superb. Yeah, she'd just come off that Ken Loach film, which I'm going to blank on the name on, but we were very excited to get her on board.
I know the one you mean.
She plays the lead. Yeah, she's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Some of the other actors in it that haven't quite broken out yet, but definitely should. And I don't want to end on Jericho Ridge, so we'll come back to it in a sec. But Mark Colleen is a phenomenal actor. He's
really good.
Amazing presence.
Yes. Yeah, he is good.
He should be getting much bigger roles. I think he's a really, really underrated actor. And of course, you cast Mitchell Lewis as one of the Turkish brothers.
Yes.
And Mitchell and I worked together on my first play, which was his first big acting job. And here he is on the right.
Oh, wow.
And this was the
He
play.
looks about 12. How old was he there?
He was early 20s. I think he already had 3 kids. I think he's got 7 now. This is the first time we met, and I really liked him. In fact, I saw him for something else. I saw him for a low budget film, which didn't happen. Remembered him and said, "Can you do a Scouse accent?" And he said, "Well, I can try." And I said, "Do a Scouse accent from the time you arrive at the audition until the point that you leave. Never try, pretend it's your own." And that's what got him cast in the role. And then we lost touch. And how we got back in touch was because I saw him in Rise of the Foot Soldiers. So I tracked him down and was like, "You're back acting again. Fantastic."
Yeah, no, he was great.
Yeah, really giving actor.
Yeah, he was a cool guy. Yeah, haven't seen him in any years.
Boy, you should cast him again, because he's I mean, he's mainly works, I think, as some sort of social worker, drugs and alcohol counselor.
That does sound familiar. Yeah.
Very noble profession and all that. But I mean, he would still jump at an acting role given the chance. Going back to Nikki Amuka-Bird, man, you proper put her through the paces in Jericho.
Yeah,
Ridge.
we did. Yeah, I mean, it was very physical. It was incredibly cold. It was sort of, it's mostly night shoots. So yeah, it was, come into work. First moment is like get on the floor, roll around, get covered in dust, get covered in mud, and every night just beat the crap out of her. And I think she's only stunt doubled twice in the whole film, so she's very physical. She's really capable.
Yeah, she's
a bit hard as well with that thing on her leg, which was probably weighing her down a little bit as well. Because I mean,
sure, I think they're quite light, those boots. They're quite light, but it just But we're sort of one of those things that originally it was a broken leg, and so you're going to have a cast on, but then obviously a cast has to be put on and off each time you shoot, and that was just like started to sound like money, so we just changed it to, like, I think they call it a moon boot or something like that.
Yeah.
But she basically had an injury. I broke my leg once, and so I was quite sort of capable of directing that, because the exact same thing had happened to me, basically.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah, was it to also just to ramp up the tension a little bit as well? Make her
totally. It was to have her on the back foot, to have her disadvantage, to just to make her character. It's just another obstacle for her, a mountain for her to summit, another obstacle in her path. And that was the exact idea. But it's one of the first things in my head. I was just broken leg. Great crutches.
Well, one of the things I really liked about this film, Will, and it's a compliment to your writing. Is there's been a lot of criticism lately about, I guess, some people say woke, but just kind of girl boss female characters in films that are absolutely amazing at anything with no justification for those abilities. I'm thinking of the recent Star Wars trilogy as one example. And these characters don't feel believable. They're not people that have vulnerabilities, that you don't feel like they've ever had a life outside of being absolutely good at everything. What I really liked about Nikki's character is that you made her flawed in every way. She has a flawed relationship with her son. She's not always a good mum. She's got a disability from the off, so she's the worst person to be defending this police station. And she also makes some bad decisions. So I thought, this is a really good example of good quality writing of a female lead who ultimately wins the day and ultimately is like the boss, but she has a narrative arc. She's not a character that's good at everything, and she grows through the process of the journey of the film, which all takes place basically in one day. I think it's one of the best female lead writing examples that I've seen in a film in quite a while. And
thanks, man. That's great. Cheers, Lance.
I recommend it. I don't know if you know The Critical Drinker, but
I've seen a couple. Yeah, I'm aware of. Yeah, absolutely.
He's the biggest film critic on YouTube now. Well, he's a good friend of mine, and I recommended your film to him to watch for exactly that reason, because he did a video about how the writing for female characters is just like, it's so poor.
Right.
In a lot of the big studio stuff. And I said, watch this film. This is a really good example of, when it's done right, it's great.
Yeah.
So we got everybody to watch it on our Tuesday night panel. We do a little show for about an hour and a half every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And I'd just seen the film, and I said to everyone, "You've got to watch this. We're going to talk about it on Tuesday." And everybody on the panel watched it, and they're quite a critical bunch, and they all loved it.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's lovely to hear.
We're going to do our best to sort of push it out for you.
Well, I guess that was like, yeah, I guess when you're writing, you do want characters that, I mean, one of the things that, I don't really, reviews don't annoy me if they criticize me, right? But I think if they criticize something that I think someone fundamentally misunderstands or gets wrong, that annoys me. There's one review I read that criticized Zach Morris's character for being sort of annoying and not very likable, and sort of thoroughly missing the entire point of his arc and the arc he has with his mother. And they're going to grow, they're going to have this catharsis, but it's not going to be like that from the outset, because they like each other and they're both great. Where the hell does the film go? So I don't know. So yeah, but yeah,
involvement in it. So you've got to let the characters evolve. You can have them be a little bit unlikable, but if they do develop in a way that makes sense, then it works, and it does work here.
But also it does, it's really super helpful having Nikki doing it. She brings, she has such an intelligence. She's so questioning. She interrogates everything. She brings such a depth of knowledge and skill and talent to that role. She I think she massively elevates this film, this project, by virtue of her being such a quality actor.
Well, she's practically carrying the film, isn't she? Because it's mostly her, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the most lead-centric thing you can ever do, I mean, it is absolutely her, front and center in every scene. She never got those moments on set to relax. Oh, you've got an evening off. It's every night,
I think it's the performance of her career to date. And I have said to her that I'm confident she's going to either win a BAFTA or Oscar for Best Actress in her lifetime. So
I wouldn't be at all surprised. I think she's more than capable of it.
How many days? Let's talk about some production stuff. How many days did you have to shoot this?
So initially, the idea was when we were looking at sort of shooting it at a much higher budget level. My thing is days, especially when you're doing action. As you know, this is the most important thing. Time. It just takes time. Yeah. If you want something like this to look good, you need the time. So originally, it was going to be 20 days, and I was like, that's never going to work. It's going to be a compromised mess. We're never going to get to show off what we can do. And so then initially we went to Kosovo. The schedule jumped up to 28 days, which sounded very exciting. But then we deleted a scene prior to shooting to save money. It was probably a wise choice, actually, in the end. So that knocked a day off. And then one of our cast got sick. That knocked a day off. And then at some point, someone pulled our shooting permit. And for a weekend, we had this sort of existential terror that the film might collapse. So it's 25 days. I'm sorry, long answer. 25 days is what we ended up having.
That's fine. And would you... Again, a production question. Do you shoot 6 days on, 1 day off?
What we did because we're going to do 6-5, that one, 11-day fortnights. But because of the things ending up the way they did, we ended up doing 5-day weeks, which was, for me, who's always in the English sort of filmmaking world, done 6-day weeks. And you all just kind of start to crap out and people get the hump and everyone gets grumpy. Whereas 2 days off, it gives you a chance to get in the edit as well. Yeah. 2 days off, and you get into week 3 and week 4, and people are still inspired and ready to go.
Well, I mean, you as the director and the driving force don't really get a day off, do you? There's always something you've got to do on your day off.
Exactly, but I did find if it's possible, obviously you'll do whatever the budget allows. But if you can shoot 5 days, it's great. I loved it. I much preferred it. Everyone gets a rest. Everyone gets a break. Everyone stays involved. Everyone stays passionate. It's great.
I think that's a good, sensible suggestion that I'll try and embrace going forward.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, a question from somebody watching, because you just mentioned a deleted scene. Any scenes that didn't make it that Will thinks might have either improved, explained, or changed the course of the story?
Well, so yeah, there was initially a scene which we couldn't really find the location. It was the lead character Tabby coming out of her house, and there were 3. There's like a trailer park nearby, but we could just and there was like some. It was just like a sort of way of showing the sort of cyclical nature of poverty in this area, and how sort of her job was the only thing keeping her and her son from falling into that. And it was in the it would have been 3 minutes into the film, and one of the hardest things of this was to get through all the setup and all that, whilst maintaining the audience's engagement before we get into the action, because it's a thriller, it's an action film. So that would have probably got cut for timing. So I'm glad we never actually shot it in the end. And there was one night where, because I think it was either the permit or the actor being sick, we had to shoot 2 days shooting essentially in one night. And so what, you lovingly plan for years becomes emergency component parts. This is just, and I don't want to say which bit it is, because I don't want to call attention to anything I think is but no one seems to have noticed. It's an emotional moment. People seem to dig it, seem to vibe with it and enjoy it. But it was a bit gutting. You fantasize about how you're going to shoot something, and for years leading up to this, that's how long it takes to set these projects up. And then you get on set and it's like, no, you got to shoot 2 days in, you must be doing like 9 pages in a night, and it's action, and you're just running at it, and all you can do is cover it with a bit of flavor. So that was
how many setups were you typically doing on a day on this?
Not a ridiculous amounts, probably over 20, but I would say, just talking about like I reckon, having obviously been an editor and coming into this, I'm quite conscious of not wasting time shooting stuff I'm not going to use. I reckon we shot maybe 5 or 6 setups that didn't make the final cut. So like everything is in there. There's no deleted scene. There's no, apart from the scene we took out before production, there's no deleted scenes.
Right.
There's 1 or 2 deleted lines, but apart from that, it is the script.
Fantastic.
And like I said, there's no flab, there's no waste.
Before we move on to your other work, was there any one particular moment or day on this that was particularly challenging for a reason that you didn't anticipate, or what was the biggest bugbear in the shoot that was like, for fuck's sake?
I do, well, probably weather.
Right.
So like I do remember coming in, we tried to shoot some of the exterior and sort of finale stuff quite early on in the schedule, maybe in the first or the second week. And I remember coming into work on those nights and the snow started, and we were sort of driving, being driven to set, and the snow started coming in, and it was, you couldn't see 20 feet. And just thinking, well, there's no way to make this work. What the hell are we going to do? There's going to be, there's low budget. There's going to be no cover. When are we going to shoot this? And somehow the snow seemed to just about get around it. And it snowed and it looked amazing. And there's a bank opposite the sheriff's office in the film, and it's covered in beautiful white snow. And it looks great. Visually, it works for the project. But then the next week, it all melted. So
that's why I felt like it was set near the Canadian border, was because.
So we've got quite a bit of VFX snow painting in there, which is I would say pretty much invisible. But it's not, when you're you've got the camera on the shoulder and you sort of want to start peeking out and looking at, building the paranoia and the tension, and Tabby's looking up. Suddenly you become conscious on set. That's now a VFX shot. Right. So it starts to affect the way you shoot things, because you become paranoid about cost overruns in the end and having everything look cheap and shit. So that was really, challenging. It definitely changed the way it was conceived and shot. But I think ultimately no one would notice, and it's worked out. And the actual VFX work was pretty much flawless. Yeah,
I the best VFX, my friend, the late Alan Marks, who was a visual effects supervisor, worked with Jerry Anderson and the like. He always said the best visual effects are the ones that you can't even notice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sure. Totally. Invisible.
I'm quite good at spotting them normally. I didn't see anything. So I commend you. Before we move on, are you allowed to say what the budget was on this?
Possibly not, but not much.
Right. Yeah, we're talking under 5 million, I'm guessing.
Oh god, yeah. We're not even close to that. Nowhere near.
Okay.
No. So no. But no, I don't. It's it's a funny one, and I'm not even sure I know the final number. But what we had to spend was not a lot in the end.
Well, do you think a smaller budget is always better because it allows you to be a bit more resourceful and think on your feet more?
It does. It does definitely. You have emergencies and crises, on a daily basis that you have to then sort of try and figure out, and you do get hopefully possibly a slightly more control, I guess, than if your first film. But it's a blessing and a curse. You want more. You always want more, don't you? You want things to be bigger, things to be But then but you do have to get creative with it. So it's a very good lesson to learn. I think.
All right, let's go back to the beginning, because you and your brother are quite well-spoken chaps. Are you products of a middle-class upbringing, sort of private education, or how did it all start? How did you get into the industry? And
well, it's a war of attrition, isn't it? No one wants to open the door. No one wants to let you in. My brother just got obsessed with filmmaking as a teenager. And I was a sort of little brother looking up to him and being excited by it. And it looked like a lot of fun. And I sort of slowly, sort of being adjacent to it, got fascinated by it too. And then sort of, I think he sort of after university, he went to film school in Napier University and then shot a sort of super low budget film after that on sort of 60mm. And we just sort of started doing it really. And then eventually got a film off the ground called Rolling with the Nines, which was shot for almost nothing.
My friend Jason Fleming was in that, I think.
Yes, yeah, he's got a small role in it as as we call him.
He's in everything of mine, and he co-owns the rights to all my scripts.
Oh wow! But no, I remember one of our biggest mistakes actually in the writing of the script. Just not enough research done. We called him captain. He was a British police captain, which obviously doesn't exist. It's that sort of it's that sort of thing where you sort of do it, and then as you start to do a bit more research and learn a bit more, making films about crime and gangsters and stuff, you start to pick all this stuff up and learn it. But at the beginning, we were pretty green. So I think he was called Captain Fleming, which is A, fucking unimaginative, and B, fundamentally wrong. So yeah, what are you going to do?
Well, it was your first film.
I like to think I've got better.
So I mean, you've kind of worked with your brother quite a bit, not always. Obviously, Jericho Ridge was kind of your first solo album in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have worked together. You quite a bit. You did Rolling with the Nines. You did Lonely Place to Die. I think you worked together.
Rise of the Foot Soldier, Plastic, and we've written a couple of other scripts for him to direct, which are in the pipeline, incoming.
So I think you predominantly worked as an editor when you started. Is that right?
Well, yeah. What I realized quite early on is setting this stuff up. Trying to set up a film takes, potentially years, and you're not usually getting paid for that. So I sort of realized very early on that I needed another string to my bow. I needed to be able to live, to pay rent, to eat, and sort of somehow fell into editing a little bit, and then that sort of snowballed and did a hell of a lot of that, and became my sort of primary career for a while. And then sort of segued into doing having sort of mostly done scripted features and action sort of based stuff, then sort of segued into doing documentaries.
Yeah, because I think, I'm not au fait with everything with your brother's career, but did he start in music videos, advertising? Is that?
No, nothing. No, it was just going out with a 60mm Bolex camera and shooting a very low budget film, trying to sell that, getting ripped off, classic. And then, that seems like a par for the course. That happens to pretty much everyone. First couple times at the gate.
I've got my own story about that, which I'll next time we go down the pub. I'll
I think I would say that most filmmakers, I would imagine, have that. You're so keen and enthusiastic to get into this industry, you're almost paid to do it on your first one.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of people willing to take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, and when you start out, you're at the bottom with literally the bottom feeders, and
I have used that word a lot, bottom feeders, to describe several producers I've crossed paths with over the last few years. There's a huge number of producers who basically want to acquire the biggest slice of the pie possible of any project, whilst taking credit for as much as possible, whilst doing as little work. Whilst doing as little as possible, and just fucking stuff up, getting in the way, and that seems to be only. And then at the end, sort of trying to steal credit and and money.
Was his first film Reckoning Day? Is that the one?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah, so that's a sort of mostly self-funded. He worked my parents had a restaurant and he worked there. We both worked there for most of a year, and he earned money and bought film stock and got it developed. And we went out into the woods with a load of fake guns, a lot of cochineal food coloring. And I think it's the first time we ever bought squibs, bullet hits, and we started doing that. It's great.
Do you think these days, also going back to your own humble beginnings, do you think these days it's essential for a filmmaker or a scriptwriter to go and do a script writing course or go and do a filmmaking course? So I've found because one of the things I do is I'm a freelance script editor and also teacher. I help loads of people with their scripts, and I find that the people that have gone on these very rigid courses where it's like make sure the exciting incident happens at page 7,
Yes, there is this, yeah.
locked into a certain way of working, and it's like, just tell the story that you want to tell. You know?
That can get a bit prescriptive. I think I always sort of fantasized about having like a writing mentor who would read my scripts and offer me advice and blah, blah, but that never really, no one wants to do it. So I don't know. I just sort of learned on the job. I'm sure there are amazing people out there, incredible teachers who are, gifted and generous and can probably save you years of mistakes. I just, I made the mistakes. But I think, it's like anything. You do it for it's the 10,000 hours thing, isn't it? You start to hopefully improve. But then obviously it's you look at some filmmakers who just seem to come out of the gate with the script that is just, Reservoir Dogs, and you're like, oh Christ, that's good. And that kind of, sometimes it can be a bit inspiring and intimidating in equal measure,
I was at the British premiere of Reservoir Dogs. It was
wow.
London Film Festival 1992, I believe was the year. It might have been 91, but I think it was 92. And that was the Odeon West End, which is now a hotel, sadly. But I know exactly what you mean. Sometimes a lot of it's about luck. Right place, right time.
Sure. Yeah, but I don't know. So I would like, if anyone can teach, if anyone's willing to teach, I'm happy to listen. But then I'll use my own judgment to figure out, I think, what works best.
So you co-wrote Rolling with the Nines with your brother.
Yeah, we edited it together, and he directed, and I directed second unit. Yeah,
I mean, when I hear you guys talking on commentaries and stuff, you have an incredible, what I would call sort of organically natural, fluid way of speaking with each other. Is that just for the commentary, or is it fair to say, I know brothers have fights, but do you have a pretty good working relationship?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. We haven't, no, so we've been writing together. Like I said, we've got 2 scripts lined up back to back. There's a really cool sort of American crime road movie, and a quite a bigger step up sci-fi film, which is really exciting. But I want to direct, and I'm not going to direct his films, obviously. So I sort of needed to find a place to go out and do my own thing, But we have a great working relationship. Spent our whole lives together.
So because writing often is considered to be quite a solitary profession, and Don, I know it's rare that people write a script together, but it does happen. Talk me through the process of how that worked for you with, let's say, Rolling with the Nines. Did you sit down and bash?
I would say at that stage we did not have a clue what we were doing. It's like, I guess you get older, we didn't have a clue. It was just guesswork, really. Sure. We'd write stuff, and I think I said the first thing to him, I said, look, let's make this. We were both pretty obsessed with The Shield at the time, and I said the first thing, I was like, look, let's make this real, let's make this raw, let's not have a car chase, let's not have any gunfights. And then the first thing he goes off and does is write a car chase and a gunfight, and I'm like, okay, great, okay, forget it. So we ended up, but I don't know. So I think we sort of learned on the job, and it's like you come up with the ideas together, and you sort of try and figure out the characters, and then you divvy up scenes, and you take it, you write them, and then sort of I would guess also you sort of, as you get older and you get more experience, you get less prickly and you get less precious. Yeah. I remember like once there's a scene at the end of A Lonely Place to Die when Sean Harris faces off with Carell Roden in a pub. And Jules had written a version of that, and I was just like, it's not going anywhere. I don't think I used the word shit. I was probably nicer than that, but I sort of implied that it was. He got the major hump, stormed out, and then came back about 3 hours later with the scene that's pretty much word for word in the film. So I think as we've got older, we've got better at taking the piss out of each other, realizing when our work falls short, and hopefully being able to inspire and push each other in equal measure.
Did you find after, Rise of the Foot Soldier in its own way was quite successful?
Well, it was, but it was like a 2-stage thing. So they did a small theatrical, it did a fairly decent sized theatrical, which didn't quite get the push, or just didn't seem to catch fire. But it was basically 1-star reviews across the board. Guardian, Telegraph, Time. I mean, people were offended.
Yeah, they were pretty brutal, and I thought this really is a British Goodfellas. I could understand some of the. I've got a criticism of the film, and I'll tell you it if you like in a sec. But the reasons that they came at you for me seemed very unfair.
But it's, I also would say that everything they criticized for the film for, when it came out on DVD and suddenly started selling insane amounts of DVDs, I think we sold 1 million DVDs in the end.
Yeah.
But suddenly everything the critics hated, the violence, the language, the nudity, just the sheer outrageous nature of it, was what people latched onto and people really loved about it. So after all those 1-star reviews, I remember going for a walk in London and just thinking to myself, right, I'm going to walk around, do an hour-long walk. I'm going to be really upset for that hour, but when that hour's over, I'm going to draw a line under it. I'm just going to move on. And that's kind of what I did. I compartmentalized it. And then, it came out at Christmas. It might have been Christmas Day or Boxing Day DVD release, and started selling. And it was like, okay, it's not over yet. We don't have to, we can, we might have another chance to make another film here. Basically, that rescued us, was people buying it, which was great.
Yeah, it's the public that makes the money, not the critics. Half the time they criticize a film they've seen for free. That's it.
Yeah, sure. I just felt they were pretty savage. And if you look at a lot of reviews now, people are sort of changed their tune a bit, and trying to walk back the absolute flaying they gave us.
It's people down the pub that I knew that has recommended it to me, and I kind of regret not watching it earlier.
Yeah,
it's got like this stuff, and it's got some of the actors from the Football Factory on there as well.
Yeah,
very good British actors, man.
It's really absolutely the one thing I've ever worked on that just possibly also the Bros documentary I cut, but Foot Soldiers just seems to have really the amount of people who I've met who just really love it and want to talk about it or what have you. It's just it really sort of it found its audience, which is great. It's so satisfying.
Did the real guy actually like it? Because I know he had some copyright issues with when the film was made. Like he
Carlton Leach.
Carlton Leach. No, so that was the sequel.
Reign of the General.
Some producer basically got hold of Carlton, got hold of Ricky, and went off and made the sequel to our film without owning the rights to do that. And sort of passed it off as the exact same thing.
Right.
So there was legals and stuff about that. I wasn't anything to do with that, so I had nothing to do with that at the time. Yeah. But yeah, they just went off, and even their poster was the same, red, white, and black. It seems very naive to have done that. I don't know.
Sorry, so was the second film wasn't made by the Loveday Carnegie?
They acquired it.
They acquired it, right?
They acquired it through legal means. Yeah, and then finished it.
Sounds like there's a story behind that, which maybe we'll say
we'll have a pint and talk about it. I can tell you where the bodies are buried.
Indeed. Yeah, I did hear a few rumblings. Various people fell out with various people, and have never.
They certainly did. Yeah.
Again. Seemed a bit of a shame, but I mean, the film. The things I like about the film is the way it's shot, the way it's edited. I love the use of the different film stocks.
Yeah, that was cool.
And I really like the fact that you talked about all that in the commentary. Good casting, lots of relative unknowns that are now really making waves in the industry and have gone on to greater things. Got people like Ian Virgo in there.
Yeah,
Mark Zammit doing his first acting role, who's now a producer and directing films. Jason Mazur, of course, who I really, really like. We mentioned Mark Colleen earlier, and of course, it was probably Ricky Harnett's first leading role, I think, where he's carrying.
I think possibly, yeah. We'd seen him in a few things and just thought, he was great. He had this. He just felt dangerous when you watched him on screen. He was just, oh Christ, anything can happen.
He starts off as kind of a terrible guy, but he ends up being the more reasonable guy in with a bunch of unreasonable people.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They did. Yeah.
So also on this channel, and you're welcome to go and watch it, Will, if you dig through my videos. I had a guest on, Matthew Holmes, who's an Australian independent film director like yourself, minus the Australian part. And he just made an absolutely superb thriller called The Cost, which he shot in lockdown, about people taking revenge on a guy who gets out of prison. And it's basically a three-hander. It's a fantastic film. It's very kind of blood simple. That
nice.
And he was staying with me for a couple of weeks in the summer of 2023, and I said, well, I'm doing a Long Good Friday and Rise of the Foot Soldier juxtaposition review. We talked about both the films, and he'd never seen either of them before.
Oh wow!
So he watched them both in the same day. And I'll tell you his main criticism of Rise, which was the main gripe I had with it, was that you're following a narrative of characters who it's incredibly hard to root for. They're all horrible.
Yeah,
people.
this is true.
And I did wonder if there was a way, and I guess it's difficult, especially as several of them are dead in real life, of how one could have elicited a more human dichotomy.
Totally. And I would say that Ricky. Look, Ricky's great in the film. I'm not going to critique him at all, but actually, I'd say the real Carlton, when you meet him, is probably a bit. Well, you have, I'm sure. Yeah. So he's funny. I always thought like a really good example of this, done really well, was Andrew Dominic, Assassination of Jesse James Carroll before.
Yeah.
Chopper with Eric Bana.
I
felt like that was a completely despicable character, but was played with such charm and humor that you just sort of got over the fact that he's headbutting his girlfriend's mum, and he turns it into a joke. And it's but there was just a certain, I don't know, he brought a certain like a humor to it that allowed you to do it. But I think, if we went back and approached that again, in the writing stages, we would absolutely think we've got to get behind this guy and root for him. And he does a lot of, like you said, he helps his friends out at the end, but in the first half he's doing a lot of fairly bad stuff. So I guess that, looking back on it, I could totally take that on the chin, that one.
Fair enough. I mean, that a good sort of comparison to the point you're making, and again, an example of a show that we're both big fans of, and I didn't even know you were a big fan of The Shield, is Vic Mackey in that pilot.
Totally.
One of the best pilots ever written.
Yeah.
He kills another cop. You're like, oh my God. But then this is the guy you need in the room with you when you're interrogating a prisoner who's got a little girl hidden somewhere that he's going to go back and rape if you don't break him in the interrogation. This is the guy you need in a fight. And then this is the guy that gives money to a prostitute to go and buy soup so she can eat. So
they mix that, I mean, and that's a great example. Another one might be Bryan Cranston in Breaking Bad. He just, he does the most despicable things, but he just somehow, and I think to Vince Gilligan's frustration, he somehow kept bringing the audience back in. And I think they were like, how doesn't everyone hate him? And it's just, he's got a certain charisma or way of being that, the sheer Vic Mackey. I used to bloody love Vic Mackey. It was great, but equally utterly despicable human being.
Yeah,
there was a part of us that sort of yearns to kind of indulge that side.
Totally.
It's like it's like some kind of freedom, isn't it?
Oh, totally, 100%. Yeah.
I don't know how you managed it, but you've made Roland Monacan look very fat in this picture.
Yeah, which is not the case. Yeah,
no, he's quite a slim guy in real life.
He is. Yeah, maybe he's leaning back a bit like that.
Yeah,
and
he really got jacked on that film, didn't he? You can see he's really pumping up when he starts juicing up.
Who, Ricky? Yeah, he did a lot. He did a lot of weights. Yeah, he was, I think, in the gym for a couple months out, just going for it, just trying to put on a bit of size. Yeah,
there's young Mark Zammit in the back.
Yes, he plays like a sort of under 5. That's what the West Ham sort of young hooligans were called back in the day. Yeah, I remember that.
I wondered why his character was called that. Thank you for.
That's what they used to call the young hooligans. Yeah, under 5s.
So you did second unit on this film.
Yeah.
So you're editing it. Sometimes your brother edited scenes. There was a real fluidity to your work process. Quite a big. The thing I like about the film, even though, maybe I've already voiced what my criticism was, but the thing I really liked about the film was it felt big.
Yeah.
It really went for a cinematic look, those shots with the blues and the snow, beautiful stuff. Big shots opening the film. It's a very, it's got a sense of scale, I think is what people say.
Nice.
So it felt like a big story. I actually my favorite segment of the film is probably the first half an hour. The first
It's quite montagey, quite fast paced, a lot of cool music. Yeah.
Yeah, but I like the whole football hooligan sequence and the way all of that is set up. And I love that scene where Bill Gardner's got the coffee and the guy
Bovril.
shouts through
It's
the window.
Bovril. It's Bovril, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like, Gardner, and he just chucks it through the. I'm going to need another one of those, lad.
Yeah. Get us a meat pie and all. Yeah.
What was the biggest challenge of shooting that movie? Because you had a couple of quite big days. One of them's in the nightclub where Carlton takes his first pill, which is a brilliant scene. And then the other big day, of course, is with the IVF firm, you know, having their massive ruck, I think, in Manchester. And I know that you had real members of the IVF that
we
day.
Did. ICF, yeah, we did.
ICF.
We had a lot of them, and none of them would be obviously Manchester hooligans. So none of them were prepared to sort of compromise their football team supporting integrity.
Yeah, it's like sacrilege to them, isn't it? It's like it's like rubbing dirt on faces, putting on another football shirt on.
No, it was just never going to do it.
Carlton's in that scene. He leads the charge of the ring.
He is. There was a bit where we were shooting with the police who are, you know, our background extras. You know what it's like. You shove everyone you can into a uniform, so it's probably mostly like our runners and stuff like that. And then there's a bit where they're chasing all the old ICF boys, and then at one point they just suddenly turned around and went at them, and then they're all just having the time of their lives.
I mean, was there did anyone get carried away? Was anyone having a ruck for real?
No, that was the closest it came, but it was sort of done in jest. It was like a joke. They just turned around and started charging the cops. But no one did, actually. It was just nice. I think there was one point we were shooting as part of a montage where someone got a bit excited. I think they had a baton. I think they might have been playing a cop, and they got a bit excited. And maybe for some insane reason, it was a wooden baton. And one of the stunt people just took them aside and basically said, "Slow down, sort it out, or I'll kick your fucking head in."
Right.
Stunt people are usually, you have to be a black belt in martial arts to, be a stunt person. Usually it's one of the qualifications. So they're usually pretty hard people. And that sorted that out pretty quickly,
Stunt people are definitely not to be messed with.
Trifled with, no.
There was a screening of the film in London last year at the cinema. I nearly went for it because there were tickets on sale. And I know a load of the original cast went along. And it was like Rise of the Foot Soldier recut with more violence, more nudity, all that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, did you guys have an involvement in that cut? Was that just a cash grab,
Julian did that. I didn't. Right. I was working on something else at the time, and I sort of didn't really want to go backwards, but he was up for it.
Yeah.
I think I don't think it's a better cut of the film.
Right.
I think the film is sort of almost running long as is. But it's I guess it's fun for the we all want to watch stuff that never quite made it. I think it's just part, but everyone wants to. But yeah, so I didn't ever know. Jules did that.
I haven't seen that cut of the film yet, but hopefully I'll track it down at some point.
I mean, there's some scenes are just pretty outrageous. Yeah, it's quite.
So funny. When one story I heard, and I don't know if this is true, you'll be able to confirm, is that there was quite a lot of discussion about how to start the movie. Who was going to do the voiceover, and at one point, I believe Ray Winston was hired to do a voiceover as older.
No, it was Jamie Foreman.
Oh, Jamie Foreman, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
And with that idea was dropped, or what happened there?
It was just a case of Ricky recorded it first time, but I think he's quite possibly dyslexic, if I'm remembering rightly, and hadn't learnt it. And so the recording session didn't come out well. Jules panicked, understandably, and we were like, Christ, what can we do? Damage limitation. So we went and got Jamie. He recorded a very serviceable, very, very good voiceover. But then we're all like, this. So what we did, which we should have probably done the first time, was give Ricky time to learn it, get his head in the game, do it again, and it was great. But so that was a brief moment.
How many people did you see for the role of Carlton Leach?
I think we just went to Ricky quite early on. I think we had some suggestions from a casting director, but none of them felt very appropriate. They really didn't. And you got to buy that the guy is, I don't know. Ricky was quite high on our minds, really. I think he was sort of main choice from fairly early on.
Because when I met the real Carlton. I think it was at some event in Essex. I forget. It was ages ago now. But pre-COVID, all seems like a lifetime. I couldn't get away from the fact that there is video footage of him online being interviewed for a documentary about hooliganism, and he's really young, and he's in a room.
Yes, yeah, it's a really good doco. Who called Hooligan? Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, and I remember seeing that when it came out. My parents being very thankful that I wasn't into football and wasn't going to football. But I thought that Craig Fairbrass really looked like him. That they had, especially the younger him. They had a really look, and I was. But I guess
Pat was so huge, right? Pat Tate, who Craig plays. Carlton's what, 5'9", 5'10", maybe, right. And Pat was like a monster, 6'4", a wall of muscle. And it just, if you're going to cast, we never thought of that actually, but if you're going to cast Craig as Carlton, you're going to need a basketball player to cast as Pat Tate, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? To sort of get that physicality from that character. Did
you see the footage of Pat Tate working out in the prison? That was another.
Yeah, of course we did. Yeah. Huge, big man.
I'm guessing you've also heard the, I don't know how it got released on YouTube, but you've got the answer phone messages of Tony Tucker's answer phone.
Oh, I don't think I have heard that. No,
oh, mate, you've got to go and listen to that. It's all the messages in the day before the murders. And the day after them, and there's one message from Tony Tucker's dad. So, Tony, it's Dad. We're hearing bad things. Get back to us, son, because you know, of course, he died of a heart attack. But the really weird thing is, there's one girl that's like, "Hi, Tony. They're saying on the TV you're dead. Can you ring me back?"
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. A man's died. I mean, but fucking hell,
you need to hear it to believe it. It's on YouTube, mate. And it's
if you're dead, can you call me? Yeah, that's crazy.
It does strike me as a very Essex girl thing.
Right. Well, I'm not going to comment on that, but yeah, that's a crazy thing. Yeah, that's
me get in trouble.
Madness. Yeah.
So when you did Rise of the Foot Soldier, did you and your brother get? Was it easier to get projects off the ground after that, or same?
Well, we did another film with Carnaby after that, which is A Lonely Place to Die. When we were supposed to shoot it a year or so earlier, and we had a different actor in the lead. We had Franca Potente attached, the German actress she's in The Bourne Identity and Supremacy. Yeah. She's in Run Lola Run. She's brilliant. Yeah, it's really good. And but then I think somehow they put in another film first. They went and shot Doghouse instead. And so we got delayed by a year. She wasn't available. And we got Melissa George, who was brilliant. Really, she's freaking brilliant. So that just, but it's that sort of thing where, oh, yeah, that's a year of your life. You're suddenly being delayed. So I was probably editing at the time, I would have thought. But it was Carnaby, yeah. So it was the same production company that financed the film. So I think it helped.
You and your brothers have an interest in mountain climbing. Is that right?
My brother does. Yeah, he dragged me along for it. I would say, I've got a perfectly hefty fear of height. I would say I have a fear of heights that's that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not terrified, but I don't enjoy it.
Right.
But I did it a lot we did a lot of we have a few, it's one of those things I like to have done. I don't like doing it. Climbing. I haven't done it for a while, but I sort of don't enjoy the process, but I feel the high afterwards. The process is just terrifying.
Is Melissa George related to Susan George from Straw Dogs with Dustin?
No, I don't think so. She's Australian. I mean, that she could be. I don't think so.
It's just because just looking at the pictures of her, right. She's got a bit of a similar vibe to Susan George in that film.
I'm not. I'm not sure is the answer, but no, don't know. But yeah, climbing. I sort of went along for it, did a bit of it, but I don't do it anymore. No, it's terrifying.
I have to say, I thought this film was really good. I thought it was quite underrated. I've met Alec Newman.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. He came to see my second play, the one I did about Northern Ireland.
Right.
And
he's a brilliant actor. And a lovely guy. Yeah, I just realised that he played, obviously, like Dune and Dune Part 2 have just come out. He played in like a TV miniseries version of Dune. He played Paul Atreides. He's doing the Timothée Chalamet part. So I've got to have a watch of that. Seeing young Alec riding worms.
The CGI on that TV series,
I can imagine it's pretty ropey.
Terribly, and they had a very limited.
That'll be half the charm.
What they did with it was quite clever. And I directed James Watson in the play, and he played Duncan Idaho in the version with
right.
So that's how I met Alec Newman. He came along to
Gotcha.
see James in my play, and you had Sean Harris in there, possibly
Yes.
one of the finest British actors of his generation, I would say.
Yeah, guys are
very
always
good.
scary. He's always scary.
He's-
Everything he's in.
He's terrifying. Yeah, when he wants to be terrifying, he can really do. I think it was that scene in Harry Brown, which first, like, no, it wasn't actually. It was him playing Ian Curtis in Joy Division, I think, which I first, not Joy Division, in 24 Hour Party People,
Yeah.
where I first noticed this guy. I was like, oh my God, this guy is just has obviously an intensity to him that's incredible. And then he did Harry Brown. He's in this amazing scene in Harry Brown when Michael Caine goes into a drug den. And Sean Harris is just fucking sleazy, terrifying guy, and he was just really, he's kind of off kilter and like I'm going to say intense again, but he's very good in real life. He's actually pretty funny, very dry, which I think a lot of people sort of mistake for, you know, being a bit like his role in real life. But I found him very funny, very, very dry, very sarcastic, you know, and he is a brilliant actor. He's really good.
Did
Yeah,
you
enjoy
did you
the villains
see in
because it's like a freedom, isn't it? So
Yeah.
Sorry, Northern, I spoke over you then.
it's all right. But yeah, I think I've only seen him play one nice guy in a role, and that was a very little known drama about the Ipswich murders, which was years ago though. But yeah, it was a very weird change seeing him from playing this nice guy, even though I've seen him always play these horrible bastards so well.
Yeah, that drama about the Ipswich murders was, I think it's called Four Little Girls or Four Girls, something like that. Really, really good.
I'd love to see someone use him in a completely different way. I'd be fascinated to see what that's like, because I'm sure he could do it.
Did he have a particular way of working that was markedly different from anyone else?
No, I don't think so. He just came in and did it. He was very very professional, very prepared, and he just came in and it was just joy to watch it on the monitor. Really good. Like I said, he's funny. You sort of imagine, I guess, because he brings that intensity and he often plays sort of bad guys or villains or people who are inherently scary, that people sort of think he's going to be like that. And I didn't think he was at all.
How happy were you guys with the final cut of the film? And I felt like it didn't really get its fair crack at release. What
it got a release, but it felt like it was possibly, I don't want to besmirch it, but possibly a bit fumbled. And I think it possibly, you know, it's one of those things where you sort of, it might have even been the only place to die, but when you release a film in a cinema, you know, in a certain amount of cinemas, and 80% of them are getting no advertising and no one's even putting the posters up, but you're like, well, they're obviously going to be empty and you're going to lose them immediately the next week. So, you know, sort of getting loads of screens for a release is very exciting in a sort of egotistical way. Like, oh God, we've got 150 screens or 100 screens or whatever it is. But then when no one's advertising them, you know, obviously no one's going. So, you know, it disappears very quickly. So that was, I guess I would have hoped that I'd done better, that movie. But people, you know, people definitely like it. It's just, I don't think it really found its audience on release, you know, certainly cinematically.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know about it at all until I saw it at the video shop, which we don't have those anymore. You know, on Archway Road in London, was quite a famous video shop back in its day, and they were very good at getting really good films in. And
nice.
I saw that you guys were involved, and that's why I rented it.
Oh, fantastic.
And plus Alex Newman. This is the young Jason Fleming, Ed Spielers.
Yeah.
I say to Jason, he's like the younger version of you, because that's what he looks like.
Yeah, I can see it in that one, actually. Yeah.
So I think this is relatively early in his career. He'd done that Argo or Ergo, that
Aragon. He'd done quite a bit earlier, which was, I guess, obviously like a star turn. You know, he's a young actor playing the lead in a huge fantasy film, but sadly, for some reason, it didn't connect. I think it wasn't a massive hit, and then he was sort of back into rotation, you know, of auditioning.
I think you had him in Plastic as well.
Yes, we did. Yeah, and I had him in a short film as well called Turncoat, which I did, which I think 2012. I must have done. Yeah.
What was the shooting schedule like on this? Because obviously, you know, a lot of it's on rocky hillsides, and was this filmed in Scotland predominantly, or?
Yeah, we were based near Inverness for most of it, and sort of shooting in a big country estate there, and then we went to the West Coast for the sort of opening scene in the Highlands, and to get sort of nice aerial shots and wide shots of the mountains. I think, if I'm gonna try and remember, I think it was 6 weeks.
Right.
But obviously, trying to get people up mountains, trying to get people safe, it's really hard. It's really hard, you know.
Yeah. Did you have any stunt teams, or was the budget?
No, we had a really good stunt team on this. We had a guy called Jamie Edgell as a stunt coordinator, and then we had two stunt. We had Belinda Norcliffe, I think her name is, who's amazing, who doubled Kate McGowan and Melissa, and then we had Chris. Christ, I'm sorry, Chris, I'm forgetting your last name, but he was brilliant. And they basically, the two of them, doubled everything, and they rigged the whole film. 3 people. There's an amazing team. You know, they did high falls, and I mean the amount of stuff they did, and they got on. They loved it, and then they got into it, and they were great to work with. Actually, a really, really good team.
This big festival number that appears at the end of the film, it's like a sort of, it strikes me as some sort of pagan rites festival. It's quite funny because it sort of comes out of nowhere, you know, at the end.
Sure, yeah. I was just talking with Jules about that today, actually. Where if we did this again, we probably would have stayed in the mountains. But this is based on something called the Beltane Fire Festival, which Jules had seen in Edinburgh, I think, when he was at uni there, at film school, and he just thought it was so striking and so cool. So I guess, yeah, you live and learn. I think probably we had a time again, we'd stay up in the mountains, and we'd use all that money that we spent on people and costumes and stuff like that, and thrown that into just creating the most intense, gnarly stunt sequences of tension and terror. You know what I mean?
Well, you've answered my next question, because when I was watching the movie, I thought, as a filmmaker, I thought, I see what's happened here. Some sort of festival is on in the local town. They've clearly said, hey, can we come along and film you and insert our actors into some scenes? But that's wrong. You actually recreate.
No, we put it on. So that's like, you know, it's like the costume department in the front row there, all in costume, all wearing those costumes. And then we had some actual people from the Beltane Fire Festival to come in and sort of paint themselves in red and sort of dance around and go crazy and spit fire and do all that cool stuff.
That was probably your most expensive day then, I would have thought, with the numbers of people. And
yeah, almost certainly, I would have thought, yeah.
So
a lot of people to feed, water, clothe, you know, look after, corral. Yeah.
Let's, as we come towards the end, let's move into your career of editing documentaries, because in my last communication to you before I asked you to come and do this, I'd just seen the Bros documentary.
Right.
And I was so chuffed when I saw your name in the credits. I thought, oh yeah, I can see Will's editing fingertips on this.
Nice.
This film. And it was a really good, quite heartbreaking film, because these are sort of 2 iconic figures that we know, love or hate them. And I have to admit, when their music came out at the time, I thought it was crap. It just felt like that Stock Aitken and Waterman stuff. But you know, it seems like gold compared to the things we're getting today. But the whole relationship between the 2 brothers, highly complicated.
It's fascinating, very complicated. Yeah. So the first documentary I think I did a film with the same director, Joe Parman. Our first one together was called Mo Farah, No Easy Mile. Yeah. So they'd shot like a 1-hour BBC thing with Mo. So they've been following him for a year, and then that was finished, done and dusted. But he was obviously going to the Olympics, and they were like, well, let's keep shooting, and then we'll use what we haven't used in the BBC thing and create like a feature out of that. So we did that. I think we cut that in 3 weeks. This insanely compressed schedule, and documentary editing is 10 times as slow, really. So I don't know. We basically pulled some crazy hours, and then our next one together was Bros, which no one, you know, because everyone's got this 90s memory of, you know, of Bros being, you know, I wasn't a girl, and I had 2 older brothers who were into heavy metal, so you know, Bros was a dirty word in my house.
Yeah, same.
So I was never going to vibe with it, but there was an entire, just a groundswell of mostly young girls and women who were just completely obsessed. And it was, you know, you look at some of the archive in that, and it's absolutely insane. The numbers, the mania, the fans who would just 300 would sit outside their house, their mum's house, most of the time. And so no one wanted to do that project. I got offered it, and I thought, oh, you know, being a bit of an idiot, I thought, oh, I don't want to do the Bros documentary. My career is fucked, for want of a better word. And then I said, I need, I went and did it. And about a week in, I was like, oh no, there's a film here. These guys are completely open. They're coming out with the most amazing stuff. Their relationship is fascinating. And then Joe, the director, he sort of came on board, and it was, I remember I just cut together a sequence just called Gold in the Avid, and I had like a 15-minute sequence of just amazing stuff, maybe 5% of which, 10% of which is in the film, because you're crafting a narrative, whatever. But we would go and get people and show it, so that people who did the score for the film, a guy called Ian Arbor and a guy called Dave Roundtree, who was the drummer in Blur. It was sort of literally come in here, watch this. They're like, we don't want to. And it's like, watch this. And then everyone jumped on it. And I, for my mind, I'm as proud of that as I am of anything, that film. And that was another bit like Foot Soldier, maybe more so because it went out on TV. It really sort of caught the zeitgeist for a minute, and it was suddenly what people were talking about. And it was just, it's a really exciting time when you've done a few things that haven't maybe, that you've loved and been proud of and haven't connected, to finally do something that does hit an audience properly. And you've got people around the world all talking about it, loving it. It was just really exciting. And it was a great working experience. It was me, Joe Perlman, and our producer, Gina Powell, in an edit suite for months and months, just having the best time, really.
There's one question I wanted to ask you about it. And again, it was also a dirty word in my house, but I vaguely recollect that Bros was originally a trio. There was a
yes. So yes, there was a third guy called Christ, who's actually gone on to become an incredibly successful musical agent. He was the bass player. So he was. We interviewed him. They interviewed him for the film, right? But he left before. He was in it. They were massive, and then he left, and then they did something like 11 nights at Wembley Stadium in a row, or 12 without him. And you're like, well, him leaving didn't have the biggest effect on the band. And then the film became about the twins and about the brothers and about that relationship. With a doc, it's not like a script. You're kind of finding it as you go. What's the story? And the story is going to unfold in front of us, and we're going to have to, we can't really steer it, but we're going to have to try and piece it together the best we can. And we just realized that he didn't really have that much of a place in it. And it became so much about these twin brothers and their relationship, and, trying to bring them back together. And he just didn't really feature. But yeah, there was a third. They used to call him Ken in the newspapers, but that wasn't his name. I'm trying to remember his name. I'm blanking. But yeah, he went on to have a great career, and we did interview him, but then we watched through it. It didn't fit.
I can see why you had to make that compromise. As soon as I finished watching the film, that was my first question in my head, wasn't there a third guy?
Yeah. That's the funny thing about docs. You have some amazing footage, but it just can't make it in, because you have to tell a story. You can't tell every story. I mean, you end up with the most amazing stuff you've ever seen on the cutting room floor. You
were pretty much on post on this, so you didn't meet the lads, I take it, personally.
I met them both maybe at a screening briefly, but no, I wasn't involved. I was editing the whole time they were shooting. So no, they were, spending weeks in a rehearsal studio with these guys yelling at each other. And I was watching it. I had the probably easier job there in terms of, much less. I could sit back and not have that emotion right in my face. So I could just sort of sit back and, absorb it and try and make it work.
How much time did you actually have to compose the narrative of the edit from start to finish?
Well, that one, I think, again, was probably more compressed than it could have been. I think I'm going to say between 14 and 16 weeks. Joe would know, but it's always slightly shorter than I remember it. I always remember it being longer than it was. Because at one point we were sprinting to get it ready for a festival. And I think 2 days before or 3 days before, we just realized this is never going to happen. We're going to send them a cut of the film that doesn't represent the final cut in any way, in any meaningful way. And so, but it definitely, like, doc edits can go on for, over a year easily. Yeah. And this was much quicker.
Yeah. They didn't complain about anything about the documentary, did they? If they ever did see it?
No, they did see it. They went out. They absolutely saw it. No, I mean, I think, well, they might, I do think people sort of, hopefully collectively, they might have laughed a bit, but they did sort of, by the end, the idea is to sort of bring you in, and hopefully you fall in love with them a bit, and you have that cathartic sort of moment with them. But I think they enjoyed it. I think that gave them, Matt went on to do, sort of Strictly and stuff. So I think it might have given them, I don't want to say a new lease of life, because they're both obviously doing their own thing and being very successful, but maybe in the UK, where they've been possibly a little bit forgotten, except from by all the super fans who are very loyal and do stay with them. But I think Luke was doing films in America. Matt was playing shows in Vegas. So maybe, it was sort of reminding everyone in England that, these guys were a huge pop legacy that seemed to have been kind of brushed under the carpet a bit, and actually can't be, because they were a huge part of the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, I'm surprised we are seeing Luke in more movies, because he could pretty much handle himself in the action movies. He can really fight if you watch him in Blade 2 and Hellboy.
Yeah, well,
2.
he did, Blade 2, Hellboy 2. So he clearly had a good relationship with Guillermo del Toro. But I haven't seen him in anything. I haven't watched. I'm not saying that I'm sure he's making films. It's just nothing I've seen that recently.
Last thing I heard he was in was the sequel to straight to DVD sequel to Death Race.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I saw that.
I haven't seen that yet.
I mean, it felt like a Roger Corman movie, which is very appropriate.
Well, great. And the circle is complete.
Yeah, and of course we lost him yesterday, sadly.
Yes.
So, we're doing a Roger Corman special tomorrow night on my show. So
very cool.
He had good innings, though. 98 years old. 98 years old.
I know. Amazing.
What is coming up for you next? What do you want to do?
So I'm trying to do I've got this script I've written before Jericho Ridge, which I was trying to get financed, which just didn't quite get over the line. I'd love to make that. I've got a TV pilot I'm trying to get made, but TV seems to be very hard. It's just a tough one. And then I've just written an action film, like a buddy. I reckon it's like a buddy movie, as I describe it. It was an action film set in Mexico, which I'm really excited about. I spent quite a long time on the script developing that. One of my producers on Jericho Ridge, Alex Tate, his sort of superpower is really digging into the script and pushing you and making you find more creative, elegant, and exciting solutions to things you thought you'd solved. So we've been working on that for a while, and we're just starting to take that out into the world. And I think that'll be a lot of fun. It's not massive, but it's bigger. It's a bigger canvas. It's more characters, and hopefully it won't be fucking freezing while we're shooting. So there's a couple of shots, if you watch closely in Jericho Ridge, where you could actually see Nikki's inside, and the windows haven't been. You can actually see her breath. It was that cold, because obviously you throw up a set like that, no one does any insulation,
right?
But yeah, so Mexico would be great.
Do you think that the landscape, now we've got all these streaming platforms, Netflix, Apple, a lot of them producing their own content, and a lot of the big budget sort of Hollywood stuff, if I never see another superhero film in my life, I'd be quite happy, frankly.
Sure. I mean, a lot of people are saying that. Yeah, I get that. Fatigue.
I find watching these long, repetitive CGI fights, which, I mean, credit to the people that create that work, they do an amazing job. I just find them so boring. What I'm hoping, especially with this new film, Only the Guilty, this Mexico script, what I'm hoping is that this sort of low to mid budget action film can make a comeback. You only have to go back to, was John Wick 2014? Yeah.
Or 20. Yeah. They spent between something like 14 or 20 million on that. It's not a big budget film. And suddenly that's a gigantic mega franchise now. But it started small. It started, it had humble beginnings.
Yeah.
And I'd love for those sort of films to make, you don't need to spend $150 million on what I want to do. You could do it for so much less. And I think, a lot of people seem to be overspending, and you're not necessarily finding the returns. And I'm just hoping films like that can make a comeback.
Would you say it's easier or harder you've got more doors you can knock on to take a project to, but it's not necessarily any easier to get past the gatekeepers to open those doors?
No, it totally isn't. And all the streamers are looking for something different. And every sort of 6 months to a year or 18 months, they'll change what they're looking for. And they're all sort of, figuring out streaming. It's such early days. They're all starting to introduce, advertising tiers, which is like when streaming began, it was the very antithesis, wasn't it? It was like, no, this is absolute purity. You're just going to watch what you want when you want. And now, obviously, unless you pay a little bit more, you've got to have adverts or what have you. So it feels like that's in a state of total flux.
Yeah,
But
they're gonna
you
lose
know,
money doing that, because that's why. Because like you said, that's why we went on streaming, because we're just fed up of normal TV, just bombarding us with adverts. And
yeah,
yeah,
totally. But I don't know. I'll tell you when I get another one off the ground, or hopefully, touch wood. But it is, you know, it's never easy. That's the thing. Trying to, as an editor or as a writer, you know, especially as an editor, you walk onto a project and it's fully financed. Occasionally, it gets kicked down the road because there's a delay. But ultimately, you're not doing that. The setup of the project, you're not sourcing the finance, all this sort of stuff that has to be done, which is so incredibly time consuming, emotionally consuming, difficult, pitfalls. The money comes in, the money falls out. Someone's a dick, someone isn't, someone, you know, it's just such a hard process.
Yeah.
But when it works, when you're on set and it's a good day and someone's acting their hearts out and they're saying your words and measurably improving what you've written tenfold, it's an incredible experience. You know, it's just the best feeling in the world. You just have to swallow an awful lot of shit to get there.
Yeah.
hope you have a good catering. Hope you have a good buffet catering service as well, because apparently that's the most important thing you do when you're shooting movies.
People do moan a lot about food. Yeah, it's one of the key moans on set. Yeah, so if you can feed people well, it does go a long way. Absolutely, I think it buys you, it buys you some of those late nights and sort of things like that.
Yeah.
People just they're in a better mood.
Yeah, because you're doing a lot of waiting as well, just to get the shots you
Totally.
need. And sometimes you do like 8 days to do one shot where a person is walking through a door, for example. Sometimes it's
And you've got like, people are often outside, they're often caught, if you're shooting nights, you're completely disconnected from the world because you're living, the different time zone to everyone else. So just that, they're by very nature of being fed good food. Well, yeah, it's great if you can do it.
We've got a question here. Is there a movie genre that's out of your comfort zone that you might want to take a stab at?
100%. Yeah. So I think genre seems to be my home, but I've just started writing my first horror film, which I'm really enjoying. And I would like to do, ideal world, everything worked out, which it never does. I'd love to do this Mexican action film, Only the Guilty, and then jump onto a horror. Because sort of action and tension and stuff like that, it's not that far away. It's just turning things a slightly different way. You've got to build tension, you've got to maintain tension, but you've also got to amplify and elevate everything. So hopefully those muscles will work for that. But it's a cool idea, and I think it'd be a lot of fun.
On that subject, do you have a favorite horror film of all time?
Yes, I do. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Mine is
the original. Come on,
mine's
the original.
Mine's The Thing, John Carpenter. But,
yeah, that would be top 5 for sure. But
yeah.
I watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I haven't seen it in years, and then the 4K Blu-ray came out recently, and I watched it again.
Wow.
And you forget how unbelievable. It's not gory. It's just savage, and it's sadistic, and it's evil, and it's cruel. And I think my wife, because we've got kind of thin walls of the neighbor, after about 15 minutes of screaming, she was like, "You can't watch this anymore. You've got." The neighbors will be thinking you're a sick fucking maniac. And so I had to pull the curtains close the next day and watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre at 9 a.m. when I dropped the kids off at school. And it hasn't lost any of its power. It's brilliant. The sound design, it's just, it's superb.
Yeah, the 4K release hasn't taken the grain away, has it, though? Because
not at all. No, it's grainy as hell.
That's what makes it just really
exactly. I agree. I think a lot of this revisionist attitude towards older films I don't love it.
Yeah, I hear the 4K release of Aliens. A lot of people are unhappy with it. I'm quite happy to keep the version I have.
I've got the Blu-ray. I've got the 4K. It looks unlike Aliens, is how I describe it. So I would say if you come into it on a first watch without the emotional baggage of having watched it another way for 20, 30 years, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
But if you're like you and me, who've been watching this since the days of VHS, probably recorded off the TV, which I had it on, it's a bridge too far. I just can't quite get my head around it.
Where can people catch Jericho Ridge, your latest film? How can I see it?
So it's available on digital to download and rent, sort of all the usual places: Sky, Amazon, Apple, YouTube, Rakuten. It's out. I think it's out in France. It's coming out in Germany, Latin America. It's been out in the cinema in the Balkans, which is very cool, obviously because of Kosovo, Albania, that kind of thing. It's on one streamer in America, hopefully a few more soon. So it's out now in England, and it's starting to drip feed its way in and around the world.
Did you get a screening at the Kosovo Film Festival? Because they've got a pretty cool film festival.
We went to Prefest or Prifest, not quite sure to pronounce it. We went there end of last summer, and it's really fun. Kosovo, it's really friendly, cool people, amazing food. It's cheap. It's incredible value, and just being there when you can sit outside in a pub in a pair of shorts rather than like 2 coats, a pair of tights, trousers, and 3 pairs of socks was a revelation. It's a really cool place, and it was really fun to go out there, see all that, see all our crew, see it. It was great fun. It was great, wicked,
fantastic. Well, look, that's a good place to end it. Will, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been great fun. Appreciate it.
I really appreciate your time, and it's guests like you that make this channel what it is. You are interview number 59, and I am doing interview 60 on Friday. So I do hope that you'll come back again.
Love to.
Maybe we can even do a double trouble with you and your brother if you can stand to be on a stream with him for more than 10 minutes.
Of course I can. I was on a Zoom with him today for an hour and a half. So I think I can manage it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Is there anything else you want to plug before we go?
Nothing at the moment. No, just watch Jericho Ridge. Buy it. Well, you could rent it, but I'd advise buying it because the rewatch is good. Hopefully,
physical media is always good to have, guys.
It's not out on physical. It's out. There's a DVD of it in Australia.
Right.
I'm hoping that Germany might do a Blu-ray. I'm fingers crossed it's 4K Blu-ray. It probably won't be, but that would make my year if I could have this film 4K Blu-ray on the shelf. I would be very, very happy because it's it does. I've screened quite a few festivals and had a few screenings of it, and it's a 4K DCP. It does look incredible on the big screen and sounds great. So to watch it, as intended, would be awesome.
Well, I would say to you, if this was my directing debut feature film, I'd be extremely proud of it, and I think you should.
That's very kind of you to say. Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you. So thanks, Will. Thanks for Luke for being my co-host today. We are going to be back tomorrow at 10 o'clock UK time, where we're doing a B-movie Roger Corman special. We were going to be talking about Cocaine Crabs from Outer Space. Will, that is a real film.
That sounds great.
Having
all my boxes.
Having watched 10 minutes of it, we've decided we're not going to talk about that film.
Fair enough.
So, Will, if you watch it, you'll understand why. But we are going to be talking about some other B movies and also just evaluating the career of the late, great Roger Corman as well.
Awesome. Sounds brilliant. I'll be watching.
I'm back on Friday with Grace Rizzo, who's an actress from Mayans MC. She's done 17 episodes of that. She's also got a new single out because she's also a musician and a rapper. So she's going to be a really interesting guest. So thank you, Will, for coming on. I really hope that you'll come back. Thanks, everybody, for watching and for your questions and comments in the chat. We'll see you all again soon.